Margin of error 15 is like literally the type of people who look at the poly bet market and go, well, it seems like people with money riding on this have decided that Trump is definitely going to win. And then just, that's it. Oh, okay. I guess then you're right. No need to have an election anymore. The crypto betting website decided the outcome already.
Leadership. We'll see.
We are unveiling a new CNN poll from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. David Chalian is where else at the Magic Wall to
3 polls for you today, Dana. Yes, these are our final set of battleground state polls, and today we're focusing on those blue wall states. Take a look at the overall numbers among likely voters in Pennsylvania. Dead heat tie, 48% to 48% in the biggest electoral college vote prize of the battleground map. In Michigan, slight edge for Kamala Harris, 48% to 43%. In Wisconsin, we also see a slight edge for Harris, 51% to 45%. I will note in these 2 states, the Supreme Court ruled that it's going to stay this way. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. remains on the ballot, and his presence there may be putting some downward pressure on Trump's numbers there. Let's look at the gender gap across all 3 states. You see here, I'll start down here in Wisconsin. Trump is up 12 with men. Harris up 21 points with women in our poll. That's certainly helping her there. The gender gap's helping her in Michigan. Men are tied between the 2 candidates in Michigan in our poll, whereas Harris has an 8-point advantage with female voters in Michigan. But then take a look here. There isn't really much of a wide gender gap. Trump's got a 4-point edge with men in Pennsylvania. Harris has a 3-point edge with women. That certainly helps explain why the race is tied there. African-American voters. Now, I just want to say, here we're comparing likely voters in a poll, which is different than actual voters that show up in the 2020 exit poll about how the electorate sort of shaped itself and how they voted in Pennsylvania. But as a comparative point, in our poll among likely voters in Michigan, Harris has a 71-point advantage among African-American voters over Donald Trump. Joe Biden in Michigan 4 years ago, according to the exit polls, won the African-American vote in Michigan by 85 percentage points. So a little bit underperformance there in this poll.
Harris in Pennsylvania plus 55 for likely black voters versus Biden at plus 85 is crazy. Okay, margin of error says 15 points. Jesus, Lord mercy. Throw it in the fucking trash. Okay, dude. What did they do? Ask 3 people? What the fuck do you mean? Margin of error 15 points. Like, sure, 4 to 5 is one thing. Margin of error 15 points is like, am I crazy? I feel like that's not, like, what are we looking at? What are we looking at here?
But much more dramatic.
Coworker asked margin of error. Margin of error 15 points is like, is akin to, you know, the 13 keys, or like, or just like asking your coworker what he thinks the black support for Kamala Harris looks like in comparison to Joe Biden.
In Pennsylvania.
It's like, it's a subsample of 93 people. It's total bullshit to do this. Cross-tab diving on this shit is so stupid. This is digging for a news story because every poll is hurting. Everyone is just saying +1, -1, 0, and not taking risks. It's annoying. Someone has the balls. Someone have the balls that not heard. No, margin of error 15. Margin of error 15 is like literally the type of people who look at the poly bet market and go, well, it seems like people with money riding on this have decided that Trump is definitely going to win. And then just, that's it. Oh, okay. I guess then you're right. No need to have an election anymore. The crypto betting website decided the outcome already.
Harris's lead with African Americans among likely African American voters in Pennsylvania in our poll is 55 percentage points over Trump. Biden in 2020 in the exit polls won African American voters in Pennsylvania by 85 percentage points. That is a potential warning sign in places like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, for the Harris campaign to take a look at. And then interestingly, this is Donald Trump's base, Dan, as you know, white, non-college educated voters. And it is still his base, but he's not performing as strong as he did 4 years ago. If you compare now, in Pennsylvania, has a 27-point advantage with white non-college voters in our poll among likely voters. But back in the exit polls 4 years ago, he actually won them in Pennsylvania by 32 points. You see it in Michigan, 17. Back then, it was 21 points. In Wisconsin, in the poll, he has an 11-point edge among white non-college likely voters. But in the 2020 exit polls, he won them by 16 percentage points. So a little bit underperforming with his own base, Dana.
So interesting. And what about what voters are saying regarding Harris and Trump and which candidate they think gets them?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. I know there are a lot of numbers here because we tested a whole bunch of candidate qualities. But clearly, Harris's best mark across all three of these battleground states is that voters see her far more as honest and trustworthy than they do Donald Trump. But I would look at these next two categories. Cares about people like you, puts country ahead of self. I think these two categories were the point of her closing argument speech last night on the ellipse. And those categories are working for her. Obviously, she'd like to see them be even bigger advantages across these three states. Shares your vision for the country. In Michigan, she's got a 1-point advantage. In Wisconsin, a 4-point advantage. Trump actually has the advantage on that category in Pennsylvania. And this is Trump's big advantage right now as a characteristic. Bring change the country needs. He has an edge against Harris among likely voters in all three of these states, obviously much closer in Michigan and Wisconsin. It's a pretty significant 7-point advantage in Pennsylvania. Harris clearly wants to do some work on this score as well. Who's left in the electorate? Well, not very many people. Most people you see here in the mid-90s, low 90s, mind made up. You see what a small percentage are still movable voters. And what about those that already voted? Now, we asked people, so among likely voters in our polls in all three states that tell us they've already voted, Harris is actually winning the people who tell us they've already voted in all three states. I would just say it's about a quarter in Pennsylvania and a third in Michigan and Wisconsin. Not as big a share as we saw in our poll yesterday in Arizona and Nevada, where they have a bigger tradition and a longer tradition of participating prior to Election Day, Dana.
A lot to digest there. Thank you so much, David. We'll see you in approximately 5 seconds digging into all of this. In addition to David is Bloomberg and CNN's Nia Malika Henderson, Politico's Meredith McGraw. David is coming to the table. We'll be here momentarily. Nia, what's your takeaway from these?
You know, listen, the only poll that matters is the one on Election Day.
But I've heard that somewhere.
I just coined it just now. Listen, we'll see what happens. You could tell the work that Kamala Harris needed to do last night, arguing that she's the candidate for change, arguing that she would restore sort of normalcy and decorum and unity in the White House. And you saw her make that implicit comparison. There she was at the ellipse where Donald Trump, of course, invoked his mob to attack the Capitol, and her essentially saying she's going to restore American traditions around inclusivity and around democracy, strong speech, and with an eye towards particularly undecided voters in those swing states, which are a sliver, about 5% at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know where David is. Where's David?
He's coming. He's coming.
Good.
He got a little. No, we'll be here in 1 second. Yes, it is a sliver of the undecided voters. Let's look at the choice for president now versus August in these three states. Wisconsin, as we just saw, Harris +6. August, Harris +6. Michigan, Harris +5. August, Harris +5. Are you sensing a theme here? Pennsylvania tied now, in August tied. And it's not as if nothing has happened in the world. It's not as if nothing has happened on the campaign trail. We don't have time to read all of this. This is just in less than 2 months. Some of the things that have happened that have had at least a little bit of an impact on this race, but it hasn't.
Harris and Trump debate. Taylor Swift endorses Harris. Baseless rumors about Haitian migrants eating pets. Liz and Dick Cheney endorse Harris. Second Trump assassination attempt. Recovery from Hurricanes Helene and Milton. New evidence from Jack Smith. U.S. port strike. Iran strikes Israel. IDF kills Hamas leader. General Kelly says Trump fits the definition of a fascist. Praise Hitler multiple times. Vile comments at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. I think we need to contend with the reality that there are just like a shit ton of people in this country that don't give a fuck. Like they're in the tank for death and destruction. And I'm not talking about like overseas death and destruction, which is uniparty. Okay. Gonna need serious de-radicalization effort after this. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck we're gonna do about that. The amount of effort needed to re-educate a dozen hogs will be on the scale of the Apollo program. You've been super correct about the whole people want their trees thing. Yeah. I just, like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about the state of affairs in this country.
Move the numbers.
And I think that's one of the most remarkable things about the polling that we've seen come across our eyes lately is that over the past few months, as you pointed out, we've seen all these really remarkable moments play out whether it was assassination attempts or really scary moments on the world stage. And yet the polling remains consistent pretty much across the board. And when I talk to both campaigns,
just got here. Has he gone over ABC supposedly leaking the election results from Formula One with Harris winning the election? Yes, it's very simple. Sometimes news media teams actually test out their graphics ahead of time. That's it. It has happened in every election cycle. The only difference is nowadays, especially with Twitter, people just see that and immediately go, oh, they're predicting ahead of time that Kamala Harris is going to win. Okay, that's it. They are preparing graphics and they accidentally unveil a graphic that they're preparing. In the graphic, they usually just add blanket data. Who was it that released the Queen's obituary years before she died? Pretty sure I remember that happening. Yeah, they did that. They did that for Noam Chomsky as well. People like media teams, news media teams do this all the time. And sometimes accidentally they play the graphic when they're testing it out and it shows up on TV and every single person goes, oh my God, it's fake or it's already staged. It's staged ahead of time. This literally happens every election law. I remember you going over this in the last election. I know. It's not real. There's no like massive conspiracy.
Phrase that they keep using on both sides, just really optimistic, and they both point to, their own data points, whether it's early voting.
We have had the Jimmy Carter obit ready at the Times for 3 years now. It's just a running joke every month. We check in on it and make photo subs. Yeah. Same with Henry Kissinger. Everyone had an obituary lined up and ready to go. I think it was Boschkar who literally had an entire book written about Henry Kissinger that he was waiting to unveil the moment he passed away. So this is very normal. This is normal stuff. Do not panic. That's it. Here. Dewey defeats Truman was an erroneous banner headline on the front page of the early editions of the Chicago Daily Tribune. On November 3rd, 1948, the day after incumbent United States President Harry S. Truman won an upset victory over his opponent, Governor E. Thomas Dewey of New York. In the 1948 presidential election, it was famously held up by Truman at a stop at St. Louis Union Station following his successful election, smiling triumphantly at the error. This has happened in virtually every single news cycle. What you're experiencing with the TV channel accidentally leaking their graphics for election night is literally dumber than even this. This one at least is like they printed this shit out. Happens all the time. It's not serious.
Or it's enthusiasm among their own slices of the electorate that they're leaning on, that they feel confident about. But it really is so remarkable that we're not seeing any major shifts here so close to the election.
And it's also unusual. I mean, the stability has been a unique feature in this race across the board. Both campaigns note that as well. And so while the news developments may have been dramatic, the actual structure of the race have not had dramatic turns.
But which is unusual, which is the point I know that you're making, is because how many times have we been covering a campaign and we've said, well, the one they can control their message. The one thing they can't control is what happens with regard to outside events. And a lot has happened that they can't control, but it hasn't changed the numbers.
No, it's been remarkably stable throughout. I mean, the biggest change in the numbers we saw in this race was when the candidate changed.
Of course,
on the Democratic side.
Which was that
the parameters around this discussion is since Kamala Harris got into this race.
The last 102 days.
Exactly. Exactly. And just staying with the states that these polls came from that we're revealing right now, the blue wall states, we just want to remind our viewers the sort of voting records of these blue wall states. And they are usually, as you can see, obviously blue, which is why they're called the blue wall states. And they're usually pretty consistent in voting together, except for a couple of notable exceptions, like 1988, when Wisconsin went for Dukakis and the other two went for Bush.
Yeah, listen, and that is the great hope of Democrats, the great hope of Kamala Harris's campaign, that these blue wall states will essentially revert to form, right? You saw Donald Trump win miraculously in all three of those states in 2016. Their hope is that their ground game and kind of the DNA of these states basically guarantee that they will win. Listen, it's going to take a lot of work. You see, Pennsylvania is a dead heat. It has been that way. There's sort of different demographics in these states, but a lot of similar different demographics. Big Black populations in the cities, and then suburban areas where they're obviously going out there taking folks like Liz Cheney to talk to some of those white suburban voters and Republican voters as well. So listen, that seems to be her most likely path.
This election really is almost over.
If Trump wins, the signs were obvious.
And it's
oh my
so
God.
close. We've been telling you that day after day. This race is basically tied. So what we're going to do today and tomorrow is to give you the case for if each candidate wins, what is behind their victory. Today, we're going to look at Donald Trump. If he wins, why will that have been? Now, if you're a Harris supporter, don't throw stuff at Harry Etten. We're going to cover the flip side of it tomorrow. CNN senior data reporter Harry Etten is here, and we're looking at the case for a Donald Trump victory, starting with what I do think has been long one of the most overlooked numbers of this election, but could be one of the most important.
Yeah, all right. So, look, just 28% of Americans, voters, think the country is going in the right direction, is on the right track. And I want you to put that into a historical perspective for you. Okay, what's the average percentage of the public that thinks that the country is on the right track when the incumbent party loses? It's 25%. That 25% looks an awful bit like that 28% up there. It doesn't look anything like this 42% doesn't look anything like this 28%. So the bottom line is, very few Americans think the country is on the right track at this particular point. It tracks much more with when the incumbent party loses than with it wins. In fact, I went back through history. There isn't a single time in which 28% of the American public thinks the country is going on the right track, in which...
You know what's really crazy about this? This obviously is a clear problem for Kamala Harris because she did not take advantage of the gift that was given to her with this swap out at a time when, like, notoriously in many of the Western countries, like, it was an incumbent disadvantage in all the elections that took place, right? And the country was ready not to blame her for Joe Biden's failures, and she still turned around and ran towards Joe Biden, okay? Having said that, however, what is truly unique about this election, amongst many others, is that you have someone who also was president, who lost one prior election and is now running again. Not only did he lose the prior election, but also on top of that, he literally claimed that the election was stolen from him over and over again, included but not limited to doing January 6th afterwards. And he was a sore loser for years after the fact. If you notice, like, Donald Trump rarely ever brings up the fact that he lost the election or that they stole the election from him to the same degree that he used to, even up during the midterms, right? Because being a sore loser does not perform well. Donald Trump is basically, he brings it up for every now and then, but you have to remember something. He brings it up every now and then, but not to the same degree as, like, I won. I'm still, I'm still convinced that I won. This was most of his commentary. This was most of his, like, the overwhelming majority of his commentary, because he's a fucking narcissist, was unwilling to recognize that he had actually lost the election. Okay? This is a major communications flaw for Donald Trump. What you must understand is that most Americans see that, and at a time when Donald Trump has all of the advantages, because people have forgotten about what it was like when he was president. People are very upset with the way things are headed in the United States of America. 28% of the United States thinks that this election is on track. Only 28. At a time like that, him hyper-focusing on trans issues, him consistently talking about migrants in a way that even, like, people who want to deport migrants consider to be a little bit too much, a little bit too far for them. All of that stuff genuinely hurts his chances with a lot of people, because every moment that he is dealing with, like, the backlash caused by his own statements over and over again is a moment where he's not talking about how he's going to fix the economy. Okay. he's going to win. You know that? I mean, he could. I'm not saying that he's like absolutely dead ass going to lose. I've never said that. As a matter of fact, I have been complaining about the Kamala Harris campaign nonstop. Okay. I've been complaining about the Kamala Harris campaign nonstop. I'm currently complaining about the Kamala Harris campaign, saying that she was delivered a massive gift with the Biden swap out, where she could have shown that she is moving the campaign and the Democratic Party in a positive direction away from Joe Biden, a person who was so objectively unpopular that it required him to drop out and be substituted with the vice president. She squandered this opportunity pretty aggressively, pretty spectacularly. So much so that a lot of the top line messaging that came from the campaign ended up slamming the polls in this deadlock 50-50 split. $30 million of ad spend on the campaign messages not working in your favor means that you have to change. At a certain point, you had to have changed your campaign messaging. Harris' campaign has been perfect? Absolutely not. Harris' campaign has been awful. Harris' campaign is perfect if you are, if you're one of these like suburban former Republican voters that already didn't vote for Donald Trump, but voted for Joe Biden instead. I don't understand this. They forgot his presidency. People still realize he had low inflation, low gas prices compared to Biden years, even after COVID was over. That's what they're voting based on. It's not some great ideological battle. No, you're not wrong. Democrats and Republicans have not helped the working class either term. You're absolutely correct. But why is Donald Trump more popular now at this point than he has ever been in any other election that he's run in, including elections that he's won in 2016 and including elections that he has lost in 2020? It is precisely because people still are reeling from the negative real wage growth that they experienced for 1.5 years. That is impossible to come back from. And in spite of that, in the midterm elections, the Democratic Party was not punished in a way that it was supposed to be punished. Chaos in the Middle East, insane prices, it's just a failure. It's the failure of the Democrats, not really the Trump appeal. I think it is legitimately a failure on the communications front from the Democratic Party to not remind people what it was like when Trump was president. Didn't Kamala's approval rating jump by like 7 points as she took over from Biden? What's your explanation for that? Yeah. All of the gains made were in the beginning. And ever since then, it's been locked in. Kamala Harris made up like 10 points from where Biden was standing at in key states. Okay. Kamala Harris literally made up in almost overnight. Kamala Harris made up for like 10 points. And then they just stopped. One must ask the question, how? One must ask the question, why? Record number of donations. They raised like $1 billion, dude, in a matter of months. And since the DNC, the numbers have not moved, or in the last month, the numbers have moved in the direction of favoring Donald Trump. Now, having said all that, I still think, given how bad of a campaign Trump is running as well, and given how limited Trump's opportunities for victory look like, because he has to capture the attention of people who either A, weren't paying attention under the Trump administration, or B, were too young to vote for Donald Trump, because he has to get those guys on board, and he's not doing enough to get those guys on board, and those guys are notoriously not exactly people who vote, mid and low propensity voters. He has a harder time. Securing a W from the Electoral College in the way that it stands. Yes, I saw the Fox News poll tracker. Trump over Harris, 50% to Harris is 49. And Pennsylvania, Trump over 50% to Harris is 49. And Michigan is deadlocked at 49-49. If you talk to people who are likely Trump supporters or openly Trump supporters or people who say they like Donald Trump and they say they might even want to vote for Donald Trump, you should ask them if they've registered to vote. And then you will understand what I'm saying. There are a lot of people, especially in the demographics, low information voters, voters with lower educational attainment, working class voters that are openly in the tank for Donald Trump. Many of them will not vote. Many of them will not go out and vote in the polls. They will not vote come November. That is my suspicion. Donald Trump has not done enough, in my opinion, beyond like the Republican version of harm reduction to get those guys to come out and vote for him. This is what I'm saying. Harm reduction voting is not successful. It's not a successful strategy. It's not a successful for the Republican Party, and it's not a successful strategy for the Democratic Party. Donald Trump being like, yo, shit sucks, vote for me, I'm gonna fix it, without ever like offering how he's gonna fix it, without ever telling people what they're gonna do, and constantly fucking focusing on like trans people. I'm gonna fix it by deporting every Mexican you've ever seen is maybe good for some people, enough for them to go out and vote because they really hate the Mexicans. But it's not enough for your fucking dummy friends, your coworkers, to be like, yeah, you know what? That's right. If you talk to your coworkers who are pro-Trump, who are most likely not going to vote for Donald Trump anyway, even though they are pro-Trump, they're just not going to vote. Ask them what they think about mass deportation. Many of them will say, hell yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Then follow up with that question and say, do you think if someone has been here for years and years, that they should have conditional amnesty, a pathway to citizenship? Like if they've earned their citizenship by working in the United States of America, not doing any crimes or anything like that? Their answers might shock you. If you watch a lot of news media, you probably will be shocked to hear that in the same breath, your coworker will say two things that are diametrically opposed to one another. If you look at the actual polling on the matter, you will not be shocked by this. 64% of Americans say they want mass deportation. The same percentage of Americans in the same polls will also say they want conditional amnesty. A much larger percentage of Americans will say they want full-blown citizenship for dreamers. Bro, nobody cares about your commie Marxist takes and your wild anti-white racism. Can you just play the vote for Trump banger? I'm sick of your anti-white racism and your poor excuse for commentary. Okay, that is a banger. You're right. That's it. What is this? What's he doing now? Oh my God. Oh, he's doing goat work. He's doing work. He's doing the work of the goat. He's doing it again. This shit works so well. Naber anne? Aha, hemen ayaklandı.
I don't know anything about the comedian. I don't know who he is. I've never seen him. I heard he made a statement, but it was just a statement that he made. He's a comedian. What can I tell you? I know nothing about him. I don't know why he's there. You put comedians up, and I guess he went on earlier in the show. I don't know who he is.
I don't know. I've never seen him. I will kill him. If I become president, I'm arresting him. I've never seen a comic in my life. I've never even heard of laughter. What is comedy? I do not know. Fox News poll shows North Carolina at 49-47 for Trump. Pennsylvania at a tie at 48-48. Michigan at Harris advantage 48-46. The gubernatorial race, obviously, as Stein winning, that's a lock anyway. But it seems like the gubernatorial race is not having down ballot consequences for North Carolina, at least in this poll, this Fox News poll. In the PA Senate, you got Casey at 50-48%. In the Michigan Senate, Slotkin, once again, overperforming the top of the ticket. Looks like Trump just killed Tony. Good one. But
which the incumbent party actually won. They always lose when just 28% of the country believes that the country is on the right track.
It is you are swimming upstream if you're trying to win in this environment.
What is this? Just subscribed? And wow, this is incredible work. Hasan Piker's joined OnlyFans. I have not joined OnlyFans. What the fuck is going on? I do not have an OnlyFans yet, okay?
Also, President Biden. On the micro level, a lot of the coverage today is over something President Biden said. On the macro level, what kind of a weight is he on the Harris campaign?
Yeah, so, Joe Biden isn't on the ballot, but he's certainly in the minds of Americans, right? So I went back and I looked, okay, was the successor of the same party when the president's net approval rating was negative at this point, which Joe Biden's most definitely is? He's 15 points underwater. Now, we don't know if Kamala Harris is going to succeed Joe Biden, but we know back in 2008, George W. Bush, his approval rating was down in the 20s. Did a Republican succeed George W. Bush? No. How about in 1968? Lyndon Baines Johnson, his net approval rating was negative. Did a Democrat succeed Lyndon Baines Johnson? No. How about in 52? Harry S. Truman, his approval rating was in the 20s, if not the upper teens. Did a Democrat succeed Harry S. Truman in 52? My memory, no. No, as Kate Baldwin says.
Dianu.
No. Dianu.
Separate.
Well played.
Close. Wrong time of the year.
Well played.
Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, succeeded Harry S. Truman. So the bottom line is, for Kamala Harris to win, she'd have to break history, be a Democrat to succeed Joe Biden when Biden's approval rating is way underwater at this point.
Again, it could happen. It just doesn't in recent history for sure. Okay, registration numbers, Harry.
Yeah, Republicans have been registering voters in big, huge numbers. They have been gaining in party registration versus the Democrats in the swing states with party registration. We're talking Arizona. I think it's a 5-point. They've expanded their lead from 5 points from where it was back in 2020. How about Nevada? Big Republican registrations there. They like the early vote. How about North Carolina? Big Republican registration games. How about Pennsylvania? We spoke about it before a few months ago. Big Republican party registration gains versus where they were 4 years ago. So Republicans are putting more Republicans in the electorate. The Democratic number versus the Republican number has shrunk. And so the bottom line is, if Republicans win, come next week, Donald Trump comes next week, the signs all along will have been obvious. We would look at the right direction being very low, Joe Biden's approval rating being very low, and Republicans really registering numbers. You can't say you weren't warned.
Again, this is the data which supports the idea of a Trump victory. Tomorrow, viewers, you will get the other side.
Stay tuned.
Kate.
It's not even the content, but sometimes Harry's delivery is just it's very scary. You're just a very scary man. You're a very scary man. Thank you, Harry. Again, tomorrow, the other side of it. They're talking about the swing states as they were just laying out very aggressively. And so try this theory on for size. The swing states of today may not be the swing states in play 4 years from now. Let us go to CNN's Zach Wolf.
Okay, they are literally, they're bored. They gotta be bored. That's crazy. That's a crazy question to be asking right now. They're bored. They're bored. They're bored. They're like, we've run through our coverage. That's crazy.
It is pretty obvious at this point that Republicans and Democrats are seeing things very differently as America decides the 2024 election. We've got a CBS.
Republicans and Democrats watch each other's news. This is false. At least like the latest. I haven't checked in on the Pew Center's research on this lately, but back in the day, and this was very consistent for years and years, Republicans reported that they would watch Fox News by 90%, whereas liberals on the other hand consumed a media diet that was not exclusive to liberal outlets. Okay? All Republicans watch Fox News and Fox News only. Liberals watch every outlet, including Fox News. That's usually the case. I don't know if that's changed.
CBS News poll showing that most likely Harris voters believe the economy is good, while 87% of likely Trump voters believe that. And a majority of Trump supporters think the number of migrants recently crossing the border has been going up, while a majority of Harris supporters say, nah, it's been decreasing or at least staying the same. So how did we get to the point where we are really actually quite literally living in two very different worlds? We went looking for answers through a little social experiment, asking supporters of both candidates to take things in from a new perspective.
Separated by only the Passaic River, the New Jersey towns of Livingston and East Hanover are miles apart politically.
I'm Tony.
Tony, I'm Lou.
You can tell where Lou D'Amour and his fiancée.
I wonder who these guys gonna vote for, man. By the way, this is precisely like this guy is who Kamala Harris has been trying to shake away from the Republican Party. Maybe not in New Jersey, but in Pennsylvania. It is exactly this guy, just so you understand.
A Karen Volino stand, along with many of their neighbors here in East Hanover, which voted for Trump by a large margin in 2020.
You got a big political sign on the house.
Yeah,
it's my hero.
While just across the Passaic, it's pretty much the opposite story.
Tony, Dana Miller.
Hey,
Dana and Jeff Miller are among the large majority of Livingston that voted blue 4 years ago. And judging by the lawn decorations,
what is the defining difference between a person who puts up a sign and a person who doesn't?
Passion.
Many here are now throwing their support behind Harris.
No, man, I think she was going for the more moderate Republicans, even if it's misguided. No, I'm saying that like the person that she is trying to shake away from the Republican Party is exactly that same type of person. Like that guy, in terms of wealth, in terms of educational attainment, it is guys exactly like that family that they are trying to desperately shake away, and it has been a failure.
Donald Trump is a sociopath. He's a narcissist, autocrat in waiting.
What are the issues for you?
The issues are, to me, primarily democracy. Democracy.
Feelings about what's at stake are just as strong on the other side of the river.
If she did, God forbid, win, it's over for us. Like America, it's over for us. It's done.
So, chap, both of these people are upper middle class, okay, in income. They're both rich in the way that you understand rich, okay? They're both rich.
How did it come to be that Americans could see things so differently?
I don't know. I get my bagels in East Hanover.
Exactly.
I'm hanging out with these people.
So
we're watching games.
Right.
You know, we're doing all this. But when it comes to politics, there's a clear divide.
A divide that's noticeable here and everywhere else, with polls showing 4 out of every 5 adults believe Americans are greatly divided on our most important values.
You can't say what you want to say. And the other...
Yeah, who the fuck would be saying that they're not? Like, honestly, yeah, they are. We are a fucking incredibly divided nation. That's true. And it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse. There is no more, like, there's no honesty or integrity or truth. I mean, maybe there never really was full-blown honesty or integrity or truth in mainstream reporting, but like, as information dissemination becomes more democratized, people are just like leaning further and further into complete nonsense. They're moving away from legacy media, and they're moving in the direction of complete nonsense that corresponds to their fucking biases. It's garbage. And at a time when like Americans are saying we're divided, Kamala Harris is like, no, we're gonna get united. We are united. We are united. One side is saying, nah, we're divided, and it's for good reason. The other side is saying, no, we're not. We'll fix it.
The other side says what they want to say, but if you say you're racist, you're homophobic, you're like, why? I'm just having an opinion.
But the way in which
an opinion that's racist and homophobic, why would you call me out?
Those opinions are formed.
I think it has to do with where you're getting your information from.
Is where we found at least some agreement.
How much do you think people's different opinions are based on just different sources of information?
I know the people that I talk to, I know the channels they're watching. I know what they're watching because they're so brainwashed they have no clue what's going on.
So we asked Lou and Karen to join us at Dana and Jeff's.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
They'd never met before, but agreed to sit down and hear each other out.
It's uncivilized. We're living in an uncivilized nation.
When, before, did we ever think like that?
Nope.
It's getting worse.
So what caused it?
The division?
Yeah, the division.
She's not going to like my answer. Obama.
You say Obama.
I'm going to blame Obama.
All of the hand-wringing, all of the caving and capitulating to the Republicans under the 8 years of Obama's reign, all of that for every single suburban former Obama voter to turn around and be like, well, we got what we deserve for voting for a black guy. Time to vote for the most racist motherfucker I could find. Just saying.
Unleashed something,
Yeah,
or
you know
represented something.
You know what unleashed me? Trump.
They couldn't agree on even basic facts on issues like the economy.
Inflation is way down.
Inflation is down?
Yeah. Jobs are up.
I mean, that's objectively correct. Inflation is down. That doesn't mean that prices are down, okay? But yes, inflation is down. The problem is that most people understand inflation as like, my prices went up. Why are they not going back down? Inflation, the rate of prices going up, has gone down. Do you buy your own groceries? Yes, I do. What the fuck do you mean? No, I have people that I've hired that you've never seen secretly purchasing my groceries. Yeah, my butler's multiple.
Border wall.
He put up 5 miles.
Yeah, well, where did you hear that? He put
On the
almost
news.
500 miles of wall.
Or foreign relations.
Putin's supporting Kamala.
Yeah, I don't see that.
He is.
Where did you hear this?
Yeah, I don't.
All over the news.
So
you said the other day you ordered them, man. Wait, what? Yeah. First of all, that's not the only way that I purchase groceries. But secondly, yeah, I'm buying the groceries in both of these conversations. Like, I'm very aware of the price increase in groceries. What the fuck are you saying? He lies. He makes us buy his groceries too. Yeah, I send Kaya out to go shopping.
We watched one of Lou and Karen's regular sources of news, Jesse Waters on Fox.
Kamala thinks voters are too ignorant to get her message through their thick skulls.
It became apparent that much of the information that show lays out
Kamala wants to win the black vote with free money and drugs.
Seemed to Dana
I never heard this before.
like it was presented out of context.
They take sound bites. They want to promote.
Does it help you understand why they feel
Yes.
the way they do?
Oh, absolutely. Because if this is what you're watching, then this is what you're believing.
And when we flipped over to MSNBC,
This is my truth.
it was Lou who flipped out over Lawrence O'Donnell.
The Trump campaign staff, all of whom disgrace themselves every day by lying every day. Get out of here.
He too saw distortion.
Yo, this shit is fire, dude. This is good content. Much respect to CBS Mornings for doing this. This is extremely my shit.
In the way his candidate was covered.
Critics say your tariffs will end up being like a national sales tax.
Nope.
Because
The countries will pay. Did you see what he just did there?
What do you do?
I saw that whole interview. He knocked it out.
This is
Chop
the
it.
sound bites
Say
from what
one
he's
word,
propagating.
nail him. Say one word and nail him. That's why they call this fake news.
In the end,
You said this is my truth. You said this is fake news.
I'm going to pray for you guys tonight. And I mean that. I mean that.
Same.
no one's vote was changed because of our little get-together.
I think the point is to watch a lot of different news outlets and form your own opinion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And yet the couples did find at least something to agree on.
Do you think these opinion shows are part of the problem?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Sometimes I think the
Yes,
both sides
I do.
show things skewing to their audience.
Yeah.
I wish we could stop this crap. You know, I mean, even the stuff that Fox says sometimes. I mean, this got to stop. I don't know what it's going to take.
Your stream pisses my dad the fuck off at least once a day. Wait, what? About what?
If we all acknowledge how we got into the silos and the problem with the diet, the media diet that we have, why do we keep eating it?
Pastime?
Habit?
Yes. 100%.
Okay, Tony.
Oh, Dr. Phil at the end there?
Yeah,
Why do we
yeah,
keep
yeah.
rooting it?
I can't thank Lou and Karen and Dana and Jeff enough. I mean, they were good sports about it. And you know what? After that, we stopped rolling. They poured drinks for one another, hung out a little bit, watched the Yankees game.
Oh, really?
Alcohol always brings people together.
All jokes aside, this is very fascinating because I feel like if we do this more often, we will have an understanding of why people have a certain perspective, why they look through the lens that they look through.
Yeah.
What we fail to realize is that what we consume, like you said, it has a profound impact on how we see the world and how we communicate with each other.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, a lot of it's happening on cable, but a lot of it's also happening with the algorithm, right? You gotta almost have to
Right.
trade each other's phones every now and then to see
true.
what the other person's looking at.
Yeah, social media is feeding you a customized list of things that you want to see or have been predisposed to. Everybody in this studio was locked in watching that piece. It was so good. Shout out to Martin Finn, your
Martin Finn,
producer.
yeah, Martin Finn brought it home with that one. And by the way, Lou and Karen, they watch us in the morning. So I hope-
great.
Your take on immigrants and it only being a difference of paperwork mainly? Wait, what? Your dad got mad at me because I correctly stated that the only difference between an undocumented migrant and a documented migrant is paperwork? That's just, why is he getting mad at like a fact? He says once they cross illegally, they're criminals. Okay. Does he have the same level of smoke for jaywalkers? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. Some crimes are major crimes. Some crimes are minor crimes. He thinks Rhodesia used to be sick as fuck for context. Oh, okay. Well, I think you and I both know what kind of belief your dad has. It seems to me like it's not the paperwork part that he's upset about. Yeah, he's just racist. Also, why do you have a Groyper dad? His mom was Hitler Youth. Jesus Christ. Why are you calling out your dad so fucking hard right now? God damn. I have a pic of her handing flowers to Goering. Oh my God. How bad does it get, dude? What the fuck? Okay, I'm done. I'm done with your call out for your family members. This is insane. Crashing out on your dad.